The next question, Harriet Jones has the next question for Governor Daniel Malloy.
Governor, there are municipalities in this state where school boards this year had to face the question of which classroom services they would cut in order to pay for additional administrators to carry out expanded teacher assessment. If teacher assessment was such an important part of your education reforms, why didn't you ensure that it was fully funded in every town?
Well, let's be quite clear about what we've done with respect to funding education. There was a gigantic hole in the education funding package when I became governor. Actually, a built-in cut of $270 million. I filled that cut. It never happened. And in the intervening years, we are sending more than $237 million per year to school systems, making a real difference. And of course, working with teachers to have an evaluation system, and that came out of that process, the PEAK process, is important work. That's why we've made technology grants to school systems. Ultimately, people who serve on boards of education have to make decisions. But for instance, where we are in New London, their funding's up about $2.5–3 million. In Norwich, their funding is up substantially. In fact, all 30 of the lowest performing districts have seen large-scale increases in their funding, beginning at about 7.5% here in New London, and rising in some cases in communities that even higher than that. There's only 2 states that have increased, there's only 6 states that have increased funding for education over the last 5 years, more than 2%. We did it by 7.5%. And we're recognized for that, and only 1 state did it to a greater extent. That was North Dakota, and quite frankly, they struck oil.
Mr. Foley?
Well, Governor Malloy talks about having spent a lot of money and taking a lot of initiatives, but listen, I come out of the private sector. It's not how much money you spent or how much time you spent doing something, but whether or not you got results. And no place more than education does it bother me that this governor is claimed to have made progress. The achievement gap in Connecticut, which is the worst in the country, has actually gotten worse under Governor Malloy. We have 100,000 young people in Connecticut who are not getting a decent education. The promise and premise of America is fairness and opportunity. And if you're not in a decent school, it's not fair. And you're not getting a decent opportunity when you get out to enjoy what people are supposed to enjoy here in Connecticut. I have a plan for fixing our schools. I've been involved in education reform for 15 years. I know what works and what doesn't. What the governor has done was never going to work. He mandated teacher assessments, even on school districts that are doing a great job at teaching young people. We have some of the best schools in the country, and we have some that are underperforming. I'm a problem solver. The first thing you know when you're a problem solver is don't try and fix things that aren't broken. When local control is working, and the schools are doing a good job, leave them alone. Let them keep doing what they're doing. This governor should have focused just on those school districts that are underperforming. He put Common Core and teacher assessments on school districts that had their own assessments and own teacher evaluation systems that were working fine. So he actually has made things worse. I will make things better with an A through F grading system. Money follows the child. A 3rd grade reading test. And in-district school choice and public school choice in districts that are not serving students well. When I'm governor, the only person I'm going to be worried about in terms of education reform are the children. The adults can get in the back of the line.
Mr. Visconti?
Well, I have to disagree with the governor's policies on education completely. The bigger problem for us is where's the money tomorrow? Where is the money for education with these multi-billion-dollar deficits coming? And I just can't believe I'm not hearing that dialogue here. What will we cut out of education to balance the budget? Common Core? This comes from hundreds and hundreds of teachers that I've met across the campaign trail. This is not my idea. I'm not a teacher. They don't like it for 1,000 reasons. Parents don't want it. It's disaffecting children with the stress. It was brought in from different grade levels. It didn't come in as a new math in kindergarten. So the teachers are rejecting Common Core. Parents are rejecting Common Core. That's just a piece of the problem. The money is the bigger problem. And I would ask the governor right now, if he had to balance the budget and cut spending, or not increase spending 7%, as he suggested earlier, where would the money go for education? Where would it come from? Whether I agreed with his platform or not on education, where's the money come from?
Governor?
We will continue the process of increasing funding for school systems and target that funding to the districts that need it the most. I want to remind both of you that Common Core was put in to this state by a Republican governor that both of you supported. I also want to remind you that at one point, not so many years ago, the United States ranked #1 in education in the industrialized world. We've fallen to 14th place. But let me be very clear about what we are doing. Graduation rates in New London, in Norwich, in our biggest cities are on the way up. There is no extended or enlarging achievement gap, Tom. That's something that you've made up. The reality is the achievement gap is closing in the state because we're making timely investments in those districts that need our help the most.
Tom Foley, do you have a quick response before we move up of education?
No, well, listen, I think spending on education is not just spending. That's an investment in the future, so I'm certainly not talking about reducing our commitment to spending. Listen, the governor says we're making progress. Connecticut is going from the 6th highest in the NEAP scores 10, 15 years ago. Massachusetts was number 8, and Massachusetts has since gone to number 1, and Connecticut has slipped down to number 9 or so. So we're not making progress, Governor. The actions you took were never funded, and they're not going to have a significant impact on educational outcomes in Connecticut. I've got a better plan.